You check your bank account at the end of the month, and there it is, less than you expected. Again. Not because of a big expense, not because something went wrong, just less. Quietly, invisibly, reliably less. You scroll through the transactions. You recognize all of them. Nothing looks wrong, nothing looks reckless. But somewhere in that list, $400 disappeared. Maybe more. And here's the part that should bother you more than the number itself. You can't explain where it went. You have a salary, you have a budget, you've downloaded the apps, you know what you're supposed to do. So why doesn't it work? I'm going to answer that. But first, I need to show you something that's going to sound ridiculous.
The most effective budgeting system available to you right now costs about 40 cents. It's an envelope. And before you close this video, stay with me for 30 seconds, because what I'm about to show you isn't about the envelope. It's about what happens to your brain when money becomes real. Here's what's actually happening to your spending. Every time you tap your card, your brain registers almost nothing. Not because you're irresponsible, because you're human. And the human brain was not designed for invisible transactions. In 2001, two researchers at MIT, Drazen Prelec and Duncan Simister, ran a study that should have changed the way we all think about money. They put people in an auction. Same items, same bidders. Half the room paid with cash, half paid with credit cards. The credit card group bid 64 to 113% more. Not a little more than double. For identical items, same people, same products, different piece of plastic in their hand. That's not a discipline problem. That's a brain problem. Because when you hand over physical cash, your brain activates a response associated with loss, actual neurological discomfort, the kind your brain wants to avoid. But when you tap a card, or worse, tap a phone, that response barely fires at all. Which means every time you pay digitally, you are making a financial decision with your spending brake switched off. And you've been doing it every single day. The $400 didn't disappear because you made a bad decision. It disappeared because you made 40 small ones without ever feeling a single one of them.
That's the invisible spending problem. And here's why your budget never fixed it. Every budget you've ever tried has the same design flaw. It tracks, it doesn't prevent. You look at what you spent after it's gone. You feel bad, you set new limits. The next month, the same thing happens. Because tracking spending after the fact is like checking your speedometer after you've already driven past the speed camera. The information is accurate, it arrives too late. What you actually need is something that makes it impossible to overspend before you've done it. Not difficult, impossible. That's what the envelope system does. And here's the part nobody talks about when they explain this method. It's not really about the envelopes.
Cash stuffing is the system of assigning physical cash to specific spending categories at the start of every month. Each category gets an envelope. Each envelope gets a fixed amount of cash. And when the envelope is empty, that category is done. Not reduced, not reconsidered, done. You can't spend what isn't there. Here's how you actually do it, step by step. And I'm going to give you the exact details that most guides skip over, because those are the ones that make the difference between this working and not. Step 1. Figure out your take-home income. Not your salary, your take-home, after taxes, after deductions, the number that actually hits your account. For this example, let's say it's $3,600 a month. Step 2. List your fixed expenses first. These are the non-negotiables. Rent, car payment, insurance, student loans, utilities. Write them down. Add them up. Let's say they total $2,100. That leaves $1,500. This is your cash stuffing amount. This is the money that used to disappear. This is what you're about to take control of. Step 3. Build your envelope categories. Most people do best with 6 to 8 envelopes. Too few and you can't track patterns. Too many and the system becomes a job. Here are the ones that matter most: groceries, dining out, gas and transportation, personal care, entertainment, and one more. And this one is the most important envelope in the system: a miscellaneous envelope. Because here's what happens the first time you try this. Something will come up that doesn't fit a category: a birthday gift, a parking ticket, a random Tuesday expense that has no home. If you don't have a miscellaneous envelope, you'll raid another one. You'll tell yourself it's fine, and then the system breaks. Build the miscellaneous envelope. It protects everything else. Step 4. Assign amounts to each envelope. Look at last month's spending in each category. Don't guess. Actually look. This is where most people get their first surprise. Because what you think you spend on dining out and what you actually spend on dining out are almost never the same number. Look at it. Write it down. Then make a choice. Is this the number you want to keep, or is this the number you want to change?
You don't have to cut aggressively. You just have to decide on purpose. That decision, made once at the start of the month, is worth more than 30 days of willpower. Step 5. The withdrawal ritual. This is the part that makes everything else work. On payday, the same day every pay period, you go to the ATM. You withdraw your cash stuffing amount. You come home, you count it out into the envelopes. This is not a chore. This is the system. Because the moment you hold $1,500 in your hands and physically divide it into categories, something changes. The money becomes real. That MIT study, this is why it works. Your brain fires the loss response the moment you handle cash, not when you swipe, not when you tap, when you physically touch and count and separate your money. You're not just budgeting. You're training your brain to feel what money actually is. Step 6. Spend from the envelope. Only. When you go to the grocery store, you take the grocery envelope, not the card, the envelope. When it's gone, and this is the rule with no exceptions, you adjust, not by raiding another envelope, by adjusting the behavior. This sounds strict. It is. But here's what nobody tells you about the first time you run out. It's not painful. It's clarifying. The moment you're standing in the grocery store with $23 left in the envelope and $31 of items in your cart, you make a real decision. Not a regretted digital swipe you'll see on a statement in 3 weeks, a real, present, eyes-open decision. That decision is the whole point. Now, what about online spending? Because the obvious weakness of a cash-only system is that 2026 is not 1987. You order things online. You pay subscriptions digitally. You book travel on an app. Here's the solution most guides miss. For digital spending, create virtual envelopes. Not a separate app, not a complex system, just a separate savings account. Most banks let you create sub-accounts or savings buckets for free, and transfer the digital category amounts there on payday. Label the bucket, transfer the amount. When it's empty, it's done. You're recreating the cash envelope constraint digitally, without the physical bills, without compromising the method. This is the hybrid system. It's how most people who stick with this actually run it after the first few months. Now let's talk about what actually happens. Not in theory, in practice. In 2023, Fox Business profiled a woman in Texas named Jasmine Taylor. She had $70,000 in debt. She started using the cash envelope system. 2 years later, the debt was gone. Not from a raise, not from a windfall, from knowing, physically, visibly, undeniably, exactly where her money was going, and making different choices as a result. $70,000. 2 years. Envelopes. Now, here's what happens to most people in month 1. You find the $400. Not literally, but you find the category it was hiding in. For most people, it's dining out, or it's subscriptions, the ones you forgot about, the ones that felt like nothing at $9.99 a month until you count 6 of them. Or it's the miscellaneous stuff, the Tuesday expenses, the convenience purchases, the things that felt small because you never saw them together. When they're in an envelope, when you watch the cash shrink every time you spend, they stop feeling small. Because they're not. They never were. And here's what changes in month 2. You stop spending on autopilot. Not because you're trying harder, because the system broke the autopilot.
The category that emptied in week 2 last month, this month you pace it differently. Not out of discipline, out of memory. You remember running out. You don't want to run out again. That's the behavioral shift. It happens automatically. The envelope trained it. And in month 3, something unexpected happens. You stop thinking about money as much. Not because you have more of it, because the decisions are already made. The money has jobs. The categories have limits. There's no more silent anxiety about where it's going, because you already know. That quiet, that reduction in low-grade financial background noise is worth more than the money you save. Most people report it happens around week 10.
Here's the uncomfortable truth about everything I've told you. None of it requires more income. None of it requires more discipline. None of it requires you to become a different person. It just requires you to make one decision at the start of each month that the rest of the month runs on automatically. The envelope system doesn't track what you spent. It determines what you'll spend before the month starts, before the autopilot kicks in, before the $400 disappears again. You already know what you should be doing. The problem was never knowledge. It was the system. Fix the system. If this gave you one thing you're going to try this month, drop a like. It helps this reach the people who need it before another month disappears. And next week, we're going to talk about what happens after you fix the spending. Because stopping the leak is step 1. Step 2 is what you do with the money you've stopped losing. That's the pay yourself first system, and it changes everything that comes after it. Subscribe so you don't miss it. I'm Sam. I'll see you in the next one.